When we talk about difficulty in games, the first thing that comes to mind is difficulty selection screen. But from a game design perspective, difficulty is much more interesting. It's not just about making things harder or easier, it's about creating a specific experience and emotions. And sometimes game designers trick players to make the game feel more exciting. That's exactly what we are going to talk about in this video. There is a thing that's called the difficulty curve. It's a graph that shows how a game should get harder over time, balancing between two extremes, too difficult and frustrating, too easy and boring. It's a good concept, but in reality it doesn't always work. So, what is the difficulty? I'd say it's what the game demands from the player to progress and enjoy it. And perfect difficulty is the balance between what the game requires and what the player is willing to invest to have fun. Now, let's go back to the difficulty curve. If you look at it, the idea is simple. The game should keep getting harder. But here's the real question. Does making a game harder always make it more fun? Let's take Devil May Cry 3 as an example. Almost every boss is harder than the last one, and the final boss, Virgil, is the toughest fight in the game. Did it work? Yeah. After beating Virgil, I felt amazing. And honestly, when the final cutscene played, I actually got emotional and, won't lie, I teared up. So, increasing difficulty can be a great approach, but imagine using the same system in a 60-hour Assassin's Creed game, making it harder and harder the whole time. That would probably just exhaust players before they even reach the end. So what shall we do? Here's where common sense and a bit of game design magic come in. Let's begin with common sense. Difficulty is just a tool. We use it to create the experience we want. If we want players to push their limits, struggle and feel an epic sense of achievement after finishing the game, then difficulty should gradually increase like on the graph. But if we are making a relaxing game, increasing difficulty doesn't make sense because difficulty equals stress. Instead, we need to keep the challenge at a comfortable level while introducing new mechanics to keep things fresh. It might seem like I'm only talking about casual and relaxing games, but that's not the case. This is where we get into some of the coolest tricks and game design techniques used in banger games. Imagine you are playing an adrenaline rush action game like Uncharted, Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed. You wanna feel like a total badass, right? But here's the problem. If the game is too hard, you will keep dying and that badass feeling will only come in rare moments when you actually succeed. But if the game is too easy, there is no challenge, and without challenge, you don't feel like a badass at all. And this is where things get interesting. Game designers pull a kinda sneaky move. They trick players into feeling way more badass than they actually are. For instance, in Assassin's Creed 2, your last few health points let you take more damage, making it seems like you barely survived. The game stays pretty easy, but it constantly makes you feel like you are pulling off insane clutches and coming out on top. But there's something that takes difficulty design to an even higher level, and that's adaptive difficulty. You can see this in Resident Evil 4. The game secretly adjusts difficulty based on how well you are playing. If you keep dying, enemies become less aggressive and you are more likely to find ammo and healing items. But if you are doing well, enemies become more dangerous and finding resources become problematic. This keeps the challenge balanced without the player even noticing. And the last approaches on difficulty worth mentioning are customizable difficulty, like in Celeste, where players can adjust gameplay settings to make the game more fun, and flexible difficulty like in Dark Souls, where your build affects how tough the game feels. Dodging is way harder than using shields or magic. In the end, game difficulty isn't about graphs like too hard, perfect or too easy. It's not just about a difficulty selection screen, it's all about the experience, and that's what really matters.